For these arrows, I'm going to cut self nocks into them. And to cut my nocks in, I've been using this little, it's like a little carbide saw blade. It goes on a hacksaw. It's not quite an 1/8 of an inch diameter, but it's a little round thing, and it works really well. But when you go to place your nocks, you need to make your string groove perpendicular to the growth rings. So when it's sitting on the bow, knocked on the string, your growth rings are going to be running like this, or perpendicular to the bow. So we've got our self nocks cut in there, and we're ready to start fletching these arrows up. One of the things that you need to look for before you start fletching them is the way that the grain's oriented. These are all pretty high quality shafts. One of the things that you need to look for when you're looking through shafts is ideally on a really high quality shaft, you'll have the annual growth rings, or the grain will run from one end all the way to the other without running off. Most of these shafts do that. They're really good shafts, but this one has got a little bit of grain runoff. And what I mean is by that is, if you look down the shaft, you'll have an annual growth ring here that'll start at one end, and it doesn't go all the way to the other end. It'll run off somewhere in the middle. When you have shafts that do that, you need to orient them so that when it's knocked on the string, that grain runs away from you but runs up. The reason that we do that is it doesn't happen very often, but sometimes you'll break an arrow, especially if you hit a rock or something and you don't know that the arrow is cracked, and you go to shoot it again, they'll break when they're being shot. And the reason that we want that grain running up away from us is if that happens, if we break an arrow while it's being shot, this back half of the arrow will ride up over the top, or the front of the shaft, instead of riding down the other way and potentially going through your hand. So it's just kind of a safety precaution. I don't think it matters much whether you shoot right helical or left, but what does matter is to make sure that all your fletchings are the same. If you're fletching right wing feathers, make sure they're all right wing. You don't want to throw a left wing in there somewhere unless you want your arrows to do corkscrews when it's flying down the range. Most of these jigs are adjustable, so you can, like I've got a few right-handed jigs and a few left-handed, and these things you can loosen up some screws and move them one way or another to make the angle of your feathers, how they sit on the shaft. You can adjust that to make it, really harsh or more kind of more in line with the shaft. When you stick your fletch in the clamp there, just line up the back down here and then press it down, make sure everything's nice and flush. Now we're just ready to put a bead of glue right here. We'll go ahead and just slip it right in the jig. Just make sure everything's sitting down on there nice and level, and I'll just wait for them to dry.